make it happen, hello everyone. Welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a 15-minute Friday where myself and a returning guest, we sit down one more time, but this time we're talking about a specific topic or subject with the goal and the hope of maybe sending you into your weekend or your upcoming week with some positive, actionable, maybe thought-provoking advice or opinion. Joining me for this 15-minute Friday, he's back, Adam Lehman, my friend. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Dude, thank you so much for being here and making another one of these with me. Unless these are, released out of order and this is the first time you've been back, then hey, dude, welcome back for the first time. That's just some business magic.
It's possible that you've made a mistake.
It's possible that you've.
It's also possible that what I'm about to say would make you not release this to the public. I think it's possible.
Potentially, we can find out. Maybe the only person who will ever listen to this is me.
If this is out in the world, I appreciate you going against your instincts and letting what I'm about to say out into the world and having your name associated with it.
It has been released. Well, you know what? Let's find out. Let's get it going. This episode, we're talking about a broad topic, something that honestly I've talked about a lot on this show with a lot of other guests, whether it's full-length episodes, 15-minute Fridays, whatever it may be, and often talked about subject, to be honest, on really any podcast or anybody with a microphone anywhere near their mouth is probably talking about this at some point. Social media and mental health. An ongoing balance, a thing that we're all kind of adjusting to and figuring out, how do we use this thing? How do we balance this, addiction to just scrolling and doom scrolling and all this sort of stuff, and how you ingest negative things and how to avoid those negative things. And there's just so much here of learning to use the mute button, learning to use the unfollow button can be a big benefit to your health. And one big thing, maybe I was
just going to tell people to block other people, but you just said that, so now I'm like, okay, well, I don't have anything else to say.
Well, I have nothing. You know what? Maybe this can spawn something. I'll start us off on this one. Clock is running, by the way. 15 minutes, counting up. My biggest thing that I keep leaning back to is because, honestly, just a couple weeks ago, I was chatting with a friend who had kind of a big mental break, just a complete breakdown because of social media, because they shared some content that from their point of view and their audience is educational to their audience and their platform and all this sort of stuff. And it found its way into the opposite audience. Into their feeds, found its way there. And they just got berated and attacked and beaten down, right? Yeah. And so it sort of sent them into this mental spiral of is what I'm doing wrong? Am I actually stupid? Am I terrible? I should not be doing this? And they deleted their socials for a couple weeks and were like, I don't even know if I should do this anymore. Yeah. Now, a reasonable response, even though that's a huge response, right? But everything that I talked to them about, and it's easier, obviously, to give somebody else advice when you're not the one dealing with it, right?
I'd much rather talk to that person than be that person.
Of course, because, giving your perspective on something rather than having to figure out what do I do in this situation is always hard. But a big thing that I talked with them about was, two things. One, remind yourself that in that case, right, and I know we're just diving into the deep end here with an example, but, I told them to remind themselves, hey, that reached a group of people that is not your audience. Mm-hmm. So the thing that you made was not for those people, right? And it was in the health world. So that's an easy thing for everyone to debate, right? No, you should only eat meat exclusively. No, only eat, whatever. It's easy.
You're definitely doing it wrong. Whatever it is you're doing is wrong and stupid.
Because that's what everyone's going to think all the time, right? Nothing's healthy, but everything's healthy. Yeah. And so, anyway, that's an easy thing. It's an easily debatable thing. And so that was the first thing I reminded them of is listen, the thing you made was for a specific audience. It found the exact opposite audience. So, of course, they're going to dislike it. Yeah. You have to understand that it's not necessarily what you did or what you said or how you did it. It's just that they don't like it. And the internet is filled with a lot of people who, when they don't like something, they now have the power to say, I don't like this. Yeah. Screw it. Fuck it. I don't want to see it. Blah, blah, blah. All this sort of stuff. Yeah. So they're going to berate it and belittle it.
It's actually more fun to be that. It's entertaining, you know?
Right. Yeah. Rather than
I'm sitting on Friday, look at my phone. My wife's like, what are you doing? I'm arguing with people on the internet exactly. As a sort of cathartic experience.
Because you can. Yeah. Because you just can. And so that's one part of it, which leads into the second part of what I try to remind them of. And this is a more existential example, and I don't have the actual credentials to speak on this. I just have a vague understanding that social media at least in my opinion,
Yeah.
is something that we are still learning how to maintain and experience as human beings.
Totally.
As animals with brains and consciousness that can understand things. And, right now I could hop on my phone. I could see something that somebody is doing across the world and see what it is, and I can tell them whether I like it or not, right?
Totally.
We've never been able to experience those things before until the last handful of years. So I know this is, again, very kind of existential and a little deeper than just like, use the mute
I like
button.
that, yeah. I
But
prefer.
my thing is, like, we have to remind ourselves, and I've had to tell myself this when I've dealt with, like, random hate or something on something, is like, we are not totally geared and evolved to deal with that yet.
No.
We're like, yes, there's hunting and shelter, and we know how to breathe, and we know how to feed ourselves and all this sort of stuff. We don't know how to, like, literally, our bodies, our emotions, our souls, our hearts, our brains, whatever you want to chalk it up to. We have not evolved to be able to manage the overwhelming sensation of someone or a collective group of people immediately hating us and telling us they don't like us.
Totally.
We don't know how to mentally process that yet.
No.
So we have to, like, give ourselves some grace, for lack of a better term, of, like, understand that, like, it's okay that you had a mental breakdown because you got a bunch of hate. Because technically what that is, what that's telling your, like, caveman part of you is that everybody in your village just decided to out you and they hate you.
Yeah.
So naturally you're going to be like, oh my God.
You're dead.
This is terrible. I've been excommunicated from the village.
Which is death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know those might be weird comparisons to make, but that's the only, like, kind of natural instinct that is going to fire off inside of us of, like, oh my God, I'm hated. I'm done for. This is it. I've been excommunicated from my group. Even though, again, with social media, the thing that we don't understand how to balance yet is that those people who are hating on you aren't actually your group. Those are random people.
Yeah.
Those are people that you do not know, nor were you trying to even bring value to them. So, of course, they're not going to see value in it because it's not something that is feeding into them.
Yeah.
So I know I just opened up a huge floodgate at the beginning of this and sort of rambled with
I think that's what it is. That's the reason the conversation around mental health and social media is they're linked. They're two different conversations to have, but we have them together because it is that. It is like we are daily, multiple times a day, exposing ourselves to exile or being paraded around like a hero for saying something quirky, saying something interesting, saying something profound, saying something terrible, or whatever those things are. And most of the people on the planet don't agree with you. Whatever it is, the thing that you think it is, mostly they don't resonate with it. But that's not how we need to care about ourselves. Like, that's not relevant. Most people are not listening to us talk right now. Mm-hmm. But I feel kind of famous with the microphone that sounds good and video cameras pointed at me, right? And so I always, when I'm working, so part of what I do is I'm coaching business owners through often growing their audiences or growing their business or whatever, and exposing yourselves to the risks of social media is typically part of it. And part of that is, like, you got to get your mind straight as we're venturing out into this world. You got to learn how to drive a car before you go out on the road. Hopefully, I hope it is, and don't be social mediating and driving if you can help it. Based on me driving here today, it seemed like most people still looking at their phones, scrolling stuff while they're driving. But in all of that to say is we got to understand the risks that are there. And the risks are your own mental health are huge. The upside of people you can reach, the impact you can have, also huge. Also, never been a platform in all of human history where we can sort of mass communicate with individual one-to-one. What Coca-Cola and Doritos can do to reach people, I can also do to reach people. That's incredible. It's in that sense, we should, like, give it a trophy. In the other sense, and this is particularly, social media has been around for some amount of time, whatever, the interconnection of a bunch of different types of people exposed to the same content, been around for a while, but recently the algorithms have taken over. It's not like Facebook's not running stuff. It's like Facebook's algorithm is running stuff. Facebook's trying to run the algorithm, and each algorithm is bent on trying to maximize the amount of time you spend with that thing open. That's it. It's like it's trying to get you to open it. And either through notifications, through being like, you ever get emails from a platform that's like, this person, your aunt just posted this thing about a thing. And you're like, I think I'm supposed to care, right? Like that's
Right.
really mean to not care.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like if my aunt's sitting at a party with me and it's like starts talking and I'm just like, it's weird. It's
Right.
awkward. So we're like programmed to care, and it knows that, and all it's doing is like turning up the dials on all of that. So social media and your mental health was one thing 5 years ago when we were like, don't compare yourself to other people. It's their highlight reel. And now it's like TikTok came out. Their total time on site for average user just destroyed every other platform. And they essentially said, we figured out how to get people addicted way better than you all have. It's way better to pop on TikTok than go scroll through Netflix for 10 minutes and try to figure out a show to watch. Because you might be wrong. And TikTok's like, I got you. I promise you will be entertained. There's no chance in the world that you're not going to like something that you see here. And if you give me enough time, I'm going to get you some other stuff that you probably like to see, but you didn't tell me. I'll figure you out. And it's really, really, really good at that thing. The algorithm is very good. Mm-hmm. And it will probably get better. And we have to figure out with our human brains that aren't capable of doing that, how do we stay good at being whatever the brain is supposed to be, right? And there's not a book about it. And so I think there's this really interesting thing where it's easy to say, don't do this, right? Like if you can't drive a car and you're going to crash, don't. But that's one thing. And people who are doing that are probably not listening to this podcast. They're probably not watching this video wherever it is in the world. So instead of saying, we're like, I'm going to drive, there's some amount of risks. I've got to figure out how to navigate all of this. And sometimes cars get faster. The safety features get enhanced. All of a sudden, I can like have a cruise control and follow people, and I don't have to think that much about it anymore. And social media is similar. A person has to figure out their own limits. The best thing I've found is just pretend like it's just real people and it's not the internet. And so a thing happened to me and a couple of years ago where I kind of got, for a little bit, the internet got mad at me for just a little bit. And it wasn't a huge thing. I'm not famous for it. I would be cool with never being famous for it. And I'd also be, the things people were frustrated at weren't wrong. But it was intense for a little bit. And so in that, I started to realize that in that space, when I show up there as a professional, as a business owner, as a person who lives in the city, that I'm not talking to my close friends. I'm talking to my acquaintances. I'm talking to people who like don't know where I came from. They don't know any hardship I've ever had. They know, it's like if I walk into a coffee shop with 4 people I really know and 100 people I don't know that well, and I start talking very loudly as if to the people who I know really, really well, the people who don't know me really well are going to misunderstand some things. They're going to assume some things. They're going to be like, oh, people like that can't, whatever. People with beards are always saying stuff like that, right? And you just have to understand that that's the game that you're playing. And so this was like coincided with the onset of COVID and sort of this locking ourselves in a little, right? Like this lockdown a little bit, is I started to really clearly define my inner circle and who that group of people were. And I started prioritizing spending time with them because we sort of were like, I'm not going to spend time with 1,000 people I used to spend time with. I'm going to have to choose a smaller group of people, form a pod to be like, all right, you doing something that may I'll lock down. Like we had to sort of be involved in each other's lives like that. And with that group of people, I realized that when I spent time with them, I wasn't exerting a lot. I was getting filled back up, right? And there's other times where I go out in the world and I'm like networking with somebody, or you're at a larger event and you're like, okay, you leave and you're like, that was fun, but also I'm kind of tired, right? And when you're with people who fill you up, you get energy when you're done. And when you're with people where you're expending energy, you're tired when you're done. And I don't think many people understand social media is the same thing. And so my Twitter account can be exhausting for someone or life-giving. And no one but that person knows which of those things I'm causing inside of them. And I think this is really true. I just think it's really true. And so you got to think about, are there specific channels or spaces that are life-giving to you that you're like, I look at this and it's amazing. I have some channels, I have some accounts that I've only follow my family members, or I mostly just follow my cousins who on one side of the family who I love talking to all the time, and they post, and I like love seeing all of that stuff. I have others I'm like, this is for work. This is to talk. This is to have conversations like this with people who I'm, through my work, my business, I'm trying to impact. I'm trying to connect with. I have a Twitter account that's just for Columbus things, and I just follow and pay attention to Columbus. So when I pop on there and I start tweeting about a local soccer team doing something, it's like, I'm not talking to other people. If other people are paying attention, that's fine or whatever, but it's not for business. It's not for work. It's for that stuff. And so I think giving yourself space to have different context and have different relationships with different spaces and channels and things like that is one of the ways that I've found to be like, you talked about the mute button at the very beginning. And I use the mute button and block button pretty heavily. There's people who are like super political with what they're trying to accomplish on the internet, and they're like mildly fascist or racist or something, and I just block all those people because I'm not trying to put oxygen in their fire. And if I get mad about it and tweet about something they did, it actually just helps them reach more people. Mm-hmm. And so I just block all of it. And that's useful for me. I wouldn't tolerate hanging out in a room where that person was saying that stuff. So why would I let them onto my Twitter feed?
You have the choice.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like, is the weird thing about social media is like, we in a way shouldn't have access to everyone at all times. And also, not everyone has to have access to you all the time. Like, I think both of those things are accurate. You don't have to, like, that person who might disagree with your thing or whatever, there's no rule that says that they have to be able to come and communicate with you on your profile. Who cares? Who cares if you block that person?
Yeah.
There's no rule. Nothing says they have to be allowed to have access to you.
Yeah.
And again, at the exact same time, we're not even supposed to have access to everyone. All the time anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it is a very weird two-way street.
Yeah. I think people who have a lot of connections on social networks or on email lists or internet in general, I think a lot of studies have been done about this. It generally leads to in-person connections. It can lead to an abundant social and connected existence, which feels very human. We are connection monsters, right? And or it can also lead to extreme isolation, and it really there's risks on both sides. And at some point you have to be like, I don't have FOMO anymore because I'm not worried about doing all the stuff everyone else is doing. And that's really, I think a person has to figure out who to pay attention to. And I think that same lens, if I could leave somebody with something, that lens would be the same way we evaluate, did we enjoy spending time with somebody? Did we spend time with somebody and did we feel filled up and refueled afterwards? Did we feel like, oh, actually, I think I have to go work harder, but I already worked really hard. So like maybe I don't need somebody telling me to try harder in my business when I'm already trying really hard. Maybe I need to hear somebody be like, why don't you take some deep breaths sometimes? Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what you need. But we have to understand what we need. We have to be self-aware enough to understand how things make us feel. That's really hard. But once we do that, I think you start to curate your experience to take care of yourself, take care of your brain, take care of yourself, your being.
Yep. Well, Adam, that's our 15 minutes.
We did it.
I feel like this could be like a 2, 3, 4-parter. I feel like we just scratched the surface.
It's like the human brain mixed with the prevailing new phenomena of a problem that we all experience and aren't quite sure what to do with.
Right. Okay, so while we just spent, just about 20 minutes here talking to people about like, hey, how can you make a more positive experience on your social media and all that sort of stuff, or maybe, hey, spend less time on it, blah blah. Let's promote some
Just
stuff
follow
as we say goodbye.
me.
Huh? Yep.
And block everyone else.
Perfect. Except me.
Except Ross.
Okay, good.
And the What You Don't Hear pod. That's
Yes.
those are the three. I'm just kidding. I feel gross saying that. If you search Adam Lehman, you'll find me on things. And I have a company called The Wonder Jam. I've got a podcast called The Gem Club. I'm like a consistent do too many things person, and
Hey, me too.
you'll find the stuff I'm into probably.
That's why we're here doing more things together.
Yeah, why not?
And while we do that, we talk to other people about like, hey, we do a bunch of things, but here's how you can do more things too. And then it's called a podcast.
It's called life.
And then we get to sit and be on the internet and do it.
There we go.
Adam, dude, thank you so much. Dude.
I love it.